Good morning, church. Can you think back on a time in which you reflected back on life and where you are now and thought, wow, I'm really not sure how I got here, but I thank the Lord that He brought me to this place? Even though it was 25 years ago, it seems like yesterday. I was in high school, I was playing football, I was hanging out with friends, and generally not worrying about too much. When I was 18, I had ideas and plans about my future. Many of them were naive and silly. So, sitting here 25 years later, I think, wow, I'm not really sure how I got here, but thank the Lord I've been brought to this place. I'm not rich. Life isn't easy, but I don't think I would take my high school idea of the good life over what God has given me today. Let me read to you a section of scripture, Acts chapter 8, verses 1 through 8. But before I do that, let me give you a little context that comes before this passage. In chapter 7, Stephen, who was one of the deacons mentioned in chapter 6, is martyred for serving Christ and preaching the gospel. Chapter 8 picks up right after this, and this is what it says. On that day, a great persecution broke out against the church in Jerusalem, and all except the apostles were scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. Godly men buried Stephen and mourned deeply for him. But Saul began to destroy the church. Going from house to house, he dragged off both men and women and put them in prison. Those who had been scattered preached the word wherever they went. Philip went down to a city in Samaria and proclaimed the Messiah there. When the crowds heard Philip and saw the signs he performed, they all paid close attention to what he said. For with shrieks, impure spirits came out of many, and many who were paralyzed or lame were healed. So there was great joy in that city. The setting of the first 7 chapters of Acts is in Jerusalem. The church up to that point faced difficulties such as Peter and John being arrested, but nothing to drive them, or at least drive the majority of the church out of town. However, with the killing of Stephen, they flee. Now, interestingly enough, Jesus told them, the disciples at the beginning of the book of Acts, that they in the early church would be witnesses in Jerusalem, but not only Jerusalem, but they would be witnesses in Judea, Samaria, and even to the remotest part of the earth. And I feel quite certain that they had plans to do this. However, it was probably in their own timing. However, God steps in, and He moves them at just the right time. With near certainty, I think we could say that the early church would have chosen a different means other than persecution, but this is what God knew was best. After the persecution, the early church could have fled and then simply remained silent. However, they remain faithful and don't stop preaching the gospel, even as they're scattered. Philip, another one of the deacons from Acts chapter 6, ends up in Samaria. As he preaches, people begin to pay attention. Demons are cast out. The lame and paralyzed are healed. The persecution of the church in Jerusalem leads to the spiritual freedom for the people in Samaria. God's ways are certainly mysterious. I don't know what God is doing in your life, but I know He has a plan. And I know it's a good plan, even if it doesn't feel that way much of the time. And keep this in mind, it is His plan. Our job isn't to put together the blueprints of life. Our job is that we remain faithful, that we serve the Lord where we are, and we serve Him in the places that He sends us. I have no doubt that if we follow the Lord, in the end, we will say, I thank the Lord that He has brought me to this place. I'll be praying for you. Please pray for me, and Lord willing, I'll see you next week.